There we go.
It's fine on my end.
How are you?
I'm good. I just I have a whole bunch of like family and personal stuff going on. Thank you for being flexible and scheduling back an hour. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So it's always fun when we're like this far apart on time zones too. It's always like 4 a.m. for someone.
Yeah, you're 11 o'clock now, aren't you?
Yeah, it's 11 a.m. here.
Cool. And still snowy?
No, it's been raining the last 3 days, so now it's pretty much just mud everywhere. It was cool yesterday though, like because it was such warm rain and there was 2 feet of snow and ice, so there was like you couldn't see 5 feet in front of your face. It was all fog. It's very eerie.
Oh, I'd love that. See, I would have loved that for photos.
Yeah. So I think you're gonna be my first Sphere 2 graduate. I'm feeling a little melancholy.
I haven't done level 26.
Okay, well that makes me feel slightly better.
I haven't even started it. I'm really stuck on it. So there you go. So I definitely am not graduating yet. I have to go back to that. That was the one that I rewrote.
Right.
About the online course, and I don't know if that's the right thing to do. So I've been very hesitant on it. So
okay.
I haven't.
Well, let's look at what you brought, and then we'll chat about that a little bit and see what's next. I'm super excited to see your layouts.
Well, I hope they're okay. I've got a few questions. I've got a whole little list of questions as well to talk to you about them, just to get your feedback and stuff.
Do you want to start with that, or you want to look through them first?
No, maybe look through them first.
Okay, let's do that then.
Are you I sent them to you. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to?
Hang on 1 second. Let me pull them up. I'll share.
Okay.
That way we can go through and think. How are you feeling after completing this? Because this is it, right? Is it done for the most part?
This is it done, apart from I have like a few questions and stuff, and then it'll be done and ready to print. Yeah, it's like I had a bit of a dip actually, where I just thought, oh, I don't know if it's the right thing to do, and I don't know what was happening in my mind, kind of thing. And I thought, oh no, I want to do a different book. And then I showed it to someone, they loved it, and it kind of, it excited me back again. So now I'm back in it. I'm not really sure what that dip was, to be honest.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I love it. I mean, it's been such a fascinating experience. It's not what I thought I was going to be doing before I joined you. So it's been great.
That seems to be the consensus for pretty much everyone in Sphere 2. Like, I didn't think I'd be doing that.
I think that's good though, because I think it really pushes you.
I do too.
And it's making me think of other things as well, which I'll talk to you in a bit about as well. But it's making me come up with other ideas, which is good.
That's good. That means we're definitely on the right path. Okay, so remind me again, what does affectus mean?
Okay, it's Latin for emotion, state of body, state of mind. There is like a little description in the introduction.
Okay.
That was going to be my first question as well, actually, about that.
Okay. What was the question specifically?
Only because Chris had mentioned that he didn't really like that name, in terms of, I think he thought it was a bit clunky and it didn't automatically make him think of emotions, and maybe it wasn't as soft and spiritual as emotions were. So that made me think, oh gosh, is it the wrong name, or should I look for other things? And I did look for other names, and I couldn't find anything that I liked as much. And actually, for me, emotions are a bit clunky. They're not. It's not always smooth.
Well, let's go to. Actually, let's stay on Google. We'll type in definition. Hi, Jess. You can type. Okay. Okay. Endowed with, possessed of, mind, affected, impaired, weakened, emotional, influence, cause, hurt, death, afflict, weaken. Interesting. So here's my only concern with it is that when you leave particularly a word that people are not familiar with, then you leave it open to interpretation, especially if they go look up the word and go, what is this?
Okay. That's where I got it from. The site that you're looking now, if you look at number 1.
Okay, so the first one that we were at was pretty much saying what I would take away from that, not knowing the word, was like a weakened state, or so it kind of has a negative connotation, which isn't specifically what we want to do. However, if you're looking towards these ones, you know, a state of body of mind produced in one by some influence, a state of disposition of mind, affection, mood, love, desire, fondness, goodwill, compassion. I would look at these and then I would maybe just put a very, very small definition on the front page. You know, like there's taglines. So with mine, let me see, do I have mine here? I do. When I did mine,
yeah.
Hang on. When I did mine, it was artistic seductions, and then it was just unlocking the erotic spirit.
Okay.
You know, so you can have a tagline like movies do. So if I was going to use a word that I would assume not many are familiar with, then I would consider putting an like a little tagline or an ad or definition. I mean, you can do it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, to have something little under here, but to also do it like a dictionary definition if you want, like, you know, but I would have it factus, and then either right here underneath or down here, I would have like whatever the wording is, however you want to word it, because you can use your interpretation of it too. You don't have to follow verbatim, but if it's like a state of body or mind produced or influenced by the world around me or by the work that I've created, you know, the mind influenced in a state of artistry, you know, or, you know, we can play around with the wording, but passion and desire, like I would sit and figure out like what the definition is that you want people to associate with, and then put that, because it also takes away the need for them to go look it up. Because if they don't know the word is, I would assume that at least half of them will be too lazy or just ignorant and not realize that it's an actual word and not something that you necessarily made up as the title. And they won't ever go look it up. So you do have that in the preface, but I don't think it's a bad idea to have it on the cover, because as much as we say not to, people do judge books by their cover.
Okay, cool.
So food for thought.
Okay, no, that's good.
I would also maybe look at putting it on the spine too, in case we're looking at bookstores and things, being able to see it if it's lined up on the store next to a whole bunch of other spines, and have that would also be good. So things to think of.
No, that's good. Good.
I don't have a problem with the name. I'm gonna veto Chris and say that I outrank him. Don't listen to him. I like the word. It's interesting.
I love it, and couldn't find. I did go back, and I couldn't find anything that really, you know, gave me as much pull. And to me, when I hear affectors, and I think people are going to be different, I hear affect us, how things affect us. That's how I kind of link it. So I am going to stick with that name. I've already got a Facebook page with that name as well anyway. So
yeah, so forget him. What does he know? I love you, Chris. But that's the thing. Like, if you change it, other people will say, no, I liked Factus better. So it'll just, you won't please everyone, but I do think my issue, however, comes in with the font. I think the font is very plain. I don't necessarily mind that it's bold, but it's not translating as high end. Or extremely, it's not high end that I'm looking for, but I would say, like, with this kind of book, I would like to see it immediately take the mold of exquisite taste, that those with exquisite taste would have this as their coffee table book. Those with amazing, especially if these are your art images, I would be, you know, if we want people to spend a good bit of money on this book, and then in turn also buy the prints from it as standalones, then I want them to feel high taste. So I'm not opposed to it being really simple. I actually think that maybe it should be smaller print. It should be dead centered in the middle of the page. And we should look at different fonts. And I don't know which one it is, but if you're anything like me, you can spend a whole day online looking over different fonts and trying it. But I don't think that this is your font. And I think that font is a big part of the branding. And the writer in me and the book lover says, like, go do it. I couldn't figure it out with mine. I made my own font. Like, I actually learned because I wanted it to have like a scrolly handwriting feel, and not look like kid handwriting or basic cursive. So I wrote it in my own handwriting. So there's thousands upon thousands. Find the one, and take your word too to see how your word specifically looks in that text as the title. And then I would probably recommend that you do maybe like a cloth cover book, and actually have it embossed or imprinted with leafing. So you could do silver gold leaf rather than black necessarily. I think that would help too. But like, I love the idea, the minimalist approach on the cover, that it doesn't really give anything away, but it's not a dust jacket book. It's like a fine art, more antique bound, 100-year-old book that happens to be in pristine condition kind of thing. That's what I'm feeling. So, does all of that resonate, or do you have a different view?
No, I've been looking at loads of different book publishers, printers, and I know we talked before, it's whether you go down the route that's, where you put the money up or you do a self-publish. The one that I've laid this out, in the program I've laid it out, the self-publishing, I do strongly think that I will print one just to see how it looks, but I don't think that would be my final print, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because I have found other printers and publishers that do much more fine art. It has got that kind of cloth cover. It does all look beautiful, but I'd almost use it to send to them to say, look, this is the idea, as like a sample kind of thing.
Yeah, the PDF is perfect. That's exactly what they'll look for. It does depend on how you want to do it. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go through the book. We did look through a bunch of this.
Yes, I think we did, because that was level 24. So I think you saw the first 6.
Okay.
6, not the first 6, but 6.
I like the simple approach. I think you should probably vary just a little bit, because you don't want the layout to get repetitive.
Okay.
So I would look at either switching pages, because right now we have little text, big picture, little text, big picture, little text, big picture. So it becomes predictable. So you want to switch it up just a little bit. I think, and it might be as simple as changing the page and the text. You can also look at having full bleed images for the ones that deserve it. And I think that there's a little bit that can be done with the layout, just so that it doesn't become too repetitive. Because as we're scrolling down, it's the same layout every page, which I think will get visually boring, even with the beautiful imagery. So definitely think of the book itself as its own piece of art, aside from just the artistry being on the page. The book is art too.
Okay. Could I play with where the text is put?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Like, I have no problem with you. One, if you have images that coincide, it's perfectly okay to like take this and drop it under here and have something else on the next page as well, and do 2 images, especially if the thoughts correspond, or if you have 2 images that both suit to this, or I could also see it if you were doing a lay flat book where you had sometimes the straight path with a very straight path, like maybe one of your peer photos, like something that's very straight and geometrical. And then on the other one says isn't the right one. And then there's the more loose, foresty sort of trail that you can see through. But so I would be very, very liberal with the layouts and the designs, and play with different things. Because the bottom line is that you have this now, create a second copy of it and play around with the layouts and move the text and stuff. And I think I have like 8 copies of my book when I was laying it out, just playing with different things. But that way you can go back, because you can always decide later, and you can get some feedback in the group too, and from other people, and go, what do you think? Do you like this better, this? Yeah. But at minimum, do not have the entire book have text on the left, picture on the right, text on the left, picture on the right.
Okay.
How did we do with looking up some of the quotes and things that you wanted to use and figuring out copyright and stuff like that? Did you get any further on the research for that?
Yes, you can't use, you're okay before 1929, I think.
Okay.
So everything that's written there, apart from the poem at the front and the poem at the back, is all mine. They're not quotes that I picked. I wrote them. So I think that's all fine. And the two other poems, the first one is Persian and it's, you know, hundreds of years old, and actually love Persian as well. So I'm okay on that.
I think that there's certain images that will lend themselves to being a full page. Like I would actually like to see this image extend and take up this whole page, and then this little bit of off-white. I don't know why it's not showing my mouse where I am. But this little bit of off-white that it is, I would extend that color and make this a full bleed so that this color goes, so that there's no borders whatsoever, because it's so minimal in the artistry that I actually think the borders are distracting from this one. So I think that if we brought it up so that it reached all the way full bleed off the edges of the page, and then just extended this color all the way out and just put the text right over the color, that would be stronger. But this is definitely one where like this would be perfectly fine sitting right here over top of the image, because there's no visual that's impacting the visibility of the text or that the text is overlaying. Does that make sense?
So do you, just so you know, where the lines are, you know, the black line at the bottom, and then like the 5 lines down the side, that's where the book ends.
Right.
Oh, you knew that. Okay. So you mean on the picture, you mean put that right up to the lines?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the text on the photo, or?
Yeah, you could bring it right over on the photo, but what I'm saying is I would take this image and not only extend it here, but then I would go in Photoshop and I would copy whatever this color is.
Okay.
It's like an off-white kind of bluish gray. I would take this and extend it and just clone and paint it all the way to the edge so that it takes up the full spread.
I've got you, the full two sides. Okay.
And then this gets a little bit larger by default because you're bringing it up too, but let it be the feature because it's so minimal on the whole page. But this is another one that this text would fit just fine over here. So if you had something else, you could like move this to this side and then do the next one on this page. You don't necessarily have to have one image per page, because again, it creates more visual interest when the layout is changing as well.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like these two work great together.
You mean the two images or the two?
Both.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. He finally understood that darkness and light could live comfortably side by side. Fits great with stand strong, whatever it is will pass. I would take this one and I would move it over to this page and make it a full bleed all the way up to the border. And then I would just lay this right about here, but on this side, so that this page is empty. Sorry, it's not, my mouse is not showing you where I am. No, I would take the whole image and I would move it over to the left side of the page and overlay the text over top of the image. And then I would take this one and I would do the same thing. I would move this one up because now this one is on the left-hand page. And the coloring and the whole format and even the content and the subject matter is all very similar. So you could very easily move that up and then just take the text and lay it underneath that image or alongside. Like we can play with the layouts, but there's definitely a couple that you have that would work on the same spread.
Okay, cool.
This one too, these are all very similar colors. So I think that we could play with like the layout of the page. And even though they're individual images and thoughts, I do think that you have a sort of storyline trail going that we can play with the page layouts. And maybe you and I'll do a hangout for that, and I'll take it and play with it. What did you design this in?
It's actually in the software for the book company. So
okay.
It's their software that you download and then you just design it.
Okay. It might be interesting for you to have chapters as well, because you have quite a few that are in black and white. Like, it would be interesting to have like a chapter that plays on words a little bit, like not everything is black and white or shades of gray kind of.
I was going to ask you about that, because I've laid it out based on the visual tones. So it starts kind of like browns and warms, and then it goes into black and white, and then it goes into kind of blues and colds and stuff. I did it based on the images rather than based on the text, but I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it. I mean, visually to me, it flowed better that way.
Yeah.
Whether that's right or not, I don't know.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful collection.
Thanks.
This is another one, like the images are so beautiful that I really want to see them fully featured. This would absolutely be a 2-page spread for me. And then the text would go underneath along the water line, like dead center. I don't think it'll take away to have the text over it, as long as the text isn't, like, you couldn't put it over the mountains, but the water is so smooth in the color and the way that it fades out, you could absolutely overlay the text and make this image twice the size and have it bleed over both pages. And I think that would be a lot better. Okay, cool. It is good. It is a lay flat book actually, so that's good. Yeah. I will do that. This one too, same thing. Like, we can appreciate the artwork and have it be more, I think. This one I love, and I think because I'm looking at it as a display of a PDF, that might be it, but I would really like to see this one so that the star, the image shining bright, is a little bit bigger and more noticeable. How do I do that on, because that's what I mean, the sizes of the images that I've put in, Anita already commented, they're not exactly the same size, and that's because I haven't finished the layout. But I mean, if I don't go to if that doesn't bleed to the top and bottom, that image, which I wouldn't want it to, how do I can't make it bigger, can I? Well, no, I mean, it'll only be as big as the page. So your only option is to either stretch it top and bottom, and or crop it a little differently. So you might be able to get away with, I like the expansiveness of it, but you might be able to cut down and keep the same crop ratio, but just take like maybe an inch off the top and an inch off top and the right side, or like half an inch off each, and zoom it in just a little bit without losing the sense of expansiveness of the snow and the thing. It'll still be mostly empty space. Cool. And again, it's the same thing. Like, you can always try it and then go, no, I like it better. Like, all of this is really just feedback. It is up to you as the artist to go, okay, I'll consider that, look at it, and then make the decision and go, oh, yeah, that works. I'm totally okay with that. Or that bitch doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm keeping it below. And both of those are totally fine. Like, that is where artistic voice comes in. Okay. Something else that you might think about doing too, to add a little more visual interest, is actually changing the text color to mimic the colors that are on the image. So you might come down and pull like a really dark blue out of like the bottom corner of the image and use that for the text, so that the color theory translates all the way through as well. I have no idea why, but this is one of my favorite pictures from you. It's every time I see it, it makes me stop and look at it. Oh, cool. That's a recent one, actually. So cool. I think considering chapters or at least groupings will be helpful, because I do still think, and I love both of them. I love this one and I love this one, but they stick out like sore thumbs from the rest of your work.
Okay.
Because they're so different. Like, we've been looking at mostly landscape style work and architectural stuff. I love these, but I think that they would have to come after, like, this is a good transition image because it still very much has the feel of like the ocean and the horizon line. And so it starts to move into a more artistic realm. And I think you can go from there and then come down to these ones. But then I think when we go back to something like the phone booth, then we lose it and it just looks like it doesn't quite fit. It's like, you know, beautiful images. And it might be that you do another, that you keep these out of this one and do another book that's all, you know, more expressionism kind of photography where you get a little more liberal with it. You know, like maybe this is the path through emotions, and maybe that is the path through imagination and is the second volume in the book series, you know. So things to consider while you're going through. Okay. And then did we decide to do like the index or the glossary with the little images in your?
We did. We looked at that, and in the end, I decided that I didn't want to put any, apart from obviously my images and my quote, I didn't want to influence at all how they were viewing anything. So I didn't want them to take my emotions or how I had interpreted that. I wanted them to come up with their own, which is why I'd put, you know, I'd be interested in, you know, hearing your thoughts. So I want it to be more of an interactive thing.
How many pages is this altogether? Do you know off the top of your head?
31, I think. Yeah, 31. So there's 26.
Okay, well it's 31 spreads, so it's actually 62 pages. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
It's 6. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so one thing that you are looking at is a very thin book right now in terms of the book and how it feels, because even this one, and I think this is thin, but this is 128 pages.
Right.
Minus all the other pages that I have stored in it that aren't actually part of the book. But so that's 128. You're talking 60. So your book's like maybe that thick right now.
Yeah, that's thin.
So also food for thought. And it's not like when you're doing a textbook or like this is an education one, I can make the book smaller in size, which makes it thicker until I get the right kind of feel for the book. But those are things that you want to take into consideration too, is how big is the book going to be? Is it going to be clunky? Is it going to look silly to have this ginormous book with minimal pages, depending on what kind of covers and stuff like that? So that's something that you should also consider. And the best way to do that really is like go spend a day in the bookstore or go through your own library and look at any of the photography books that you have in coffee table style books and see what the average page count is. Like this one's got over 300 images in it, but it's also got about, if it's just the text on a Word doc, I think it's like 60 pages of text. So you're doing very minimal text as well, so you don't have a lot of filler with it.
I had in the link that I sent you, did you see the 4 screenshots? Yes.
Let's go look at them next.
Because I went to the bookshop the other day actually exactly to do that. Well, not to look at page count, but just to look at different books and who printed them and what they looked like. And there's this company in East London. They only do books about East London, but they're mini books. They're called Hoxton Mini Press. And I really like, so these are all the little books they do, and then they come almost in a collection. And I sort of thought about, you know, I quite like the idea of that. And then you can, you know, build up the collection. So you could almost, like you're saying with the chapters, you could almost have different books based on different emotions or different, or like each book is a new chapter. kind of thing.
I love that idea for a couple of reasons. One, I love the look and feel of it. Me as a reader and as an art appreciator and somebody too many books, I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of the collection as the master trying to make you, you know, a fuck ton of money. The more series you have, the more you have the ability to build residual income, which is awesome. Because let me tell you, every 6 months I get a check for this book for a couple $1,000.
Okay.
You know, so you know, now it's a little bit different and it's a little bit harder to do it with coffee table books. This is an instructional book, so it's very easy for me to sell to pretty much anybody that's in boudoir. Because there's a lot of good info in it for them to learn, especially if they're just getting started. Your book is an art item, so it is only and solely for the appreciation of, God, I love her work. Like that's what sells that book. On the upside, this book is pretty much only for people that really love me and want a collection of the art, or people that are photographers. So my market's a lot smaller than yours. Yours is anybody that looks at an image of yours and goes, oh, I love that. So I think that's a really big market. Being able to have it be an ongoing series, you will have your diehard fans that will buy the full collection, and then you'll also have people that won't come across Adfectus, but will come across, you know, issue 6.
Yes.
And hear about you then, and then go back and go, oh my God, she's got 5 others. I have to have the whole case. So you have a lot of room to play for that, especially if this is something that you're going to create consistently and you feel like you could continue producing the work to put one of these out, say every year, or every 6 months, or like you would have to decide the time, but that you could produce the same kind of quality. You could also have people that are on a subscription plan, like a magazine. You know, like we think of magazines in the terms of once a month, but like people would buy annuals as well, you know, or periodicals that come out every 3, 4, 6 months. And have them shipped to them, and they could just be on a payment plan that it gets billed to them to a credit card that they have on file, and as long as they have it, they get them.
Yeah.
You know, the other option, and this might be a better option for you if we're looking at it, is to, I don't know that you necessarily need it to be in book format or need it to be solely in book format. So something you might look at is actually doing a box of images. So you could have a box with like, there's 32 images that has either the quote on the back or has the quote on the bottom of each print. And they would have, you know, like a gift box of prints. And then it's very easy to get like, you know, little table easels. And so they could take the prints and just whichever one moves them that month, they could have it out on like a coffee table or something, like a little 8x10 kind of print that sits out and is actually displayed in their home. So then they have both because they have the full collection, but they can go based on, you know, what's moving them. What emotion are you today? Put that one out when you walk in and out of your house at the table by your door kind of thing, you know? So that appears to the different emotions. There's a whole bunch of different ways you could monetize this.
I love that idea.
I do too. And honestly, then it opens up a bunch of different options too. Like I would love to see some of these prints on smaller cards. Like what if they were actually the size of, say, business cards, something they could put in their wallet?
Yeah.
You know, that they could take with them, like take courage with you today, you know? And so it's great to have, like, maybe Adfectus is the, how does this make you feel? And kind of the shrink version, but then maybe how you feel about them and what you saw when you did them. Maybe we do cards where on the front is the image and on the back is a word, like oracle cards, where you go, this is courage. It represents courage because, you know, X, Y, and Z. And so when people need courage because they're going to go on a first date or they're going for a job interview or, you know, whatever it is, they can take courage with them and put it with them for the day. And then your images become these sort of talismans for them. And there's that emotional connection, you know, like there's a ton of different ways that I see for the ability to monetize, but I love the idea of residual books and things being made, because then you have all of the money coming in from them, and you can sell them as collections of the whole, like, you know, you buy the bundle kind of thing with like movies and stuff. You can buy one season or you can buy all 9.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, I kind of thought if each one's a different chapter, so maybe one focuses, I don't know, on joy, or one focuses on the thought or whatever, then the idea was, you know, you grab a cup of coffee and you think, oh, I feel a bit like that today, I'm going to get that book out. And then you sit and read that book, and then that goes back into the collection. And then maybe the next day you feel, or the next month you feel totally different. So, you know, you feel a bit sad and you want to pick up joy, or you want to pick up, I don't know, love or something like that. So it, you know, that was more the way I was going, rather than having a coffee table book.
Mm-hmm.
Then
yeah.
Does that limit the people that would then buy that, do you think? Or does that?
I don't necessarily think so. I think they're just different products. So maybe Adfectus is the entire book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that has the full range of emotions that you've traveled. And the next one you do is intellectual. And, you know, it's a path that you take for growing your mind. And then the next one is imagination. And that's where it's all the more impressionistic, you know, experimental kind of work that you do. And that's for all the creatives. And more about intuition. And you can, I think if you were going to do it, you would have to stay with, Adfectus would sort of set the tone for it. Mm-hmm. So you would probably be looking for Latin words as the titles for all of them. Mm-hmm. You know, with the same kind of feel. They would work together as a series. So the book covers would be very similar in the color and the design and the font layout. And just the insides would be different. But maybe if we were going to do one that was more the impressionistic experimental work, and that was going to be all imagination and creativity, then maybe the font's a little more swirly or, mm-hmm. you know, kooky.
I think you've just written my Sphere 3 map.
Yeah, I think so too. But I also think that you're absolutely right. So within Adfectus, you have genres of emotions. Like you have, you know, your light and your dark. You have joy and you have love, but then you also have solitude to the point of loneliness and feelings of fear and sorrow. So it may be the kind of thing that we break them down into smaller packets where people would get a set of 5 or 10 images mm-hmm. In a smaller form. Like maybe they're greeting cards, like, you know, because we think like who would send a greeting card that would be negative. But, you know, absolutely those kind of images, like the one at the telephone booth would be great for somebody that just lost someone they loved and you were sending a condolence card, you know, or going through something hard, or, you know, someone that is feeling fearful about quitting their job and following their dream kind of thing. And you go, no, have courage, like go for this. You know, there's a lot of different monetization things that I think that you could do that are essentially, and the great part about it is that the work's done. Mm-hmm. You know, so all you're doing is going, okay, now I'm going to take these and I'm going to put them in the book. Now I'm going to take this same set of images and all the words in the work I did, and I'm going to put them into boxes that people can have prints so that people can choose which one speaks to them. And then I'm going to offer a, you know, a 4x6 option or a business card option, or Graphy Studio does these great little books that accompany the their albums, and I'm sure you could get them done elsewhere. But I had one wedding client that got 200 albums that were 2x2. And so they were super small and fit right in the pocket. And it's like, it's this little novelty item, which makes it a stocking stuffer for Christmas, and a great little catch gift for people to give at bridal parties or birthdays or as favors for different things. It'd also be a great option for you to do if you were doing a gallery show of all this work and people could take a little book home with them, you know? So I'm always thinking in terms of like, you have your fine art book, you know, which is maybe $50 to $120. And then you have the individual box print, which is, you know, a limited edition, and you sell that for $500 to $1,000. And then you have the individual wall prints, which you can sell for a couple $100 to commercial and personal, whether it's hanging over a family fireplace mantle or, you know, behind the concierge desk at a major hotel kind of thing. But then you also have your little souvenir gifts, the things that people pick up to go, hey, I was in I was in London today and I'm going to bring this home for the kids, or I'm going to do this. Like, those are the little things that people that go, I can't afford to spend a couple $100s on that right now, can still spend $10 to $50 and get a really nice little art thing. So you're touching price points for every financial demographic then. So then there's nothing that you're offering that isn't marketable to every price point. But it's not costing you more work, because where that comes in is like, you couldn't design this kind of project and do only, say, little 2x2 books for like $10, or like little individual images the size of business cards for like $1. It's when people start to try to sell on price only, the amount that you would have to sell for it to be a return on investment is nothing. But if we discover that this, for your time and energy, that you need to sell, we'll say 50 books at $100 a piece, and you need a couple of grand to offset it, then the nice thing is that all these other ones that either, you only sell one book every month, we'll say, at like the limited edition, or like the box that's like $1,000, you sell 4 or 5 of them a year. That's okay, because you're also selling a couple hundred of the little books. Yeah. But you're not doing any more work for it. It's done. This will make you money for the rest of your life. That's what you want, because then you start building up that income. Like, this book makes me at least $3,000 to $6,000 every year, and I wrote it in 2012. Wow. So now compound that and go, by the way, I now have 9 books in the collection. And you can buy the book, you can buy the box of images, you can buy the little trinkets, you can buy the greeting, the designer fine art greeting cards. And so I'm taking what Jess is doing at $3,000 to $6,000 for a book, and now I'm upping it to $10,000 to $12,000, per set that I do. And then I have 9 of them times $10,000 a piece, and now you're making $90,000 a year sitting in Fiji on a beach going, just should have charged me more for this.
That would be a nice dream. Although swap Fiji for the Arctic and I'm there.
Yeah, like, but that's the idea. Like, we're to the point now, I was just talking to Mike about this, like, I can work wherever I want in the world. Yeah. I can sit and do what I love doing from wherever I'm at. And there's things that make me money when I'm doing nothing. So when I want to take the weekend off because there's 2 freaking feet of snow outside and we want to go sledding for 3 days in a row with the kids, I don't have to worry about I'm taking a day off work and I need that income from that day, or I need to cut something out. Like, the money comes in residually from stuff that was done months and years ago. And that's the point that I want to get you guys to, because that is how artists sell. That's the difference between being a portrait photographer or service, weddings. It's great when you get hired and you get commissioned for work. Like, hey, we love your architecture stuff. Would you come take some pictures of our building? But you have to take the time to go and do the work, to shoot it, to create the images, edit, hand that back. And when that process is done in all that time, so is the money. You get paid for it and then you move on. And that's how most people work. With this kind of stuff, once we get this built and we start building your social media following and people are like, oh my God, I can't wait. Did you hear the next book's coming out? That just makes you money forever, like continuously. And the work's done months and years ago. Like, you don't have to do anything else to create the product. Once it's done, that's what we're moving towards.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So, okay. You had a ton of questions.
I get through? Yes, no, you probably answered a lot of them. On the last page, I don't know what, I had put like all my contact info, but is that overkill? Is that too much? Should I just have like my website address and then, because that goes out to everything else?
I think there's a couple of things to consider. Number one, are you sure this doesn't change ever? Like, are we, like, pretty much I would say yes. Like, you use your name, so that's really easy. Yeah. Sandra Jordan, like everything's at Sandra Jordan, so that's fine. I wouldn't include anything that you even remotely think might either change to a different name or might drop off as a platform. So if you're like, I really hate blogging and in 3 years I could see myself not blogging, then I would take the blog out.
Okay, good, because that would be the one I think that I would lose.
So, if people go to your website, is there an option there to contact you? Actually, you know what? I'm just going to go. Sandra Jordan Photography .uk.
.co.uk.
Okay, so you probably don't need to have your email. You can just have your website, because if I want to go check it out, I can go click on contact and there's your email information.
Sure.
So I don't think it necessarily needs to take up space. I would keep your website.
Mm-hmm.
What social media are you on the most?
I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook regularly.
Okay.
And then I have Flickr and 500 pics, but not as often. And I have Pinterest and LinkedIn as well. But my main three are Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And then I have to say, actually, in my intro, because I've got a different Facebook page, I set up a Facebook page for the book. So maybe I don't need that Facebook one at the back.
It depends on where you want people to go. So if you're, again, going back to creating, if you're going to do a series, are you going to create a different Facebook page for each book?
No. Would be my start would be no, because then you've got to get all the people that liked that book to then go and re-like the next book. So I would just keep it as one, I think.
Okay, well then let's take a look at something else real quick. Hang on one second. Let's go to Facebook and we'll look up, share with you so you can see. Okay, so if we go, Happy Friendship Day. Did you know it's Friendship Day on Facebook?
Facebook told me this morning.
Okay, so let's look up Harry Potter. I would say that's probably the most famous international book series. So there's Harry Potter, and there's the main page. Let's do Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Okay, so my guess is that with as big as this is, that this is not an official page. Maybe it is though. It might actually. Okay, so what's another one?
I don't know. I can't say I've watched any of them. Oh.
Okay, so there's the Divergent series. Okay, so this says Divergent series. Okay, and there's like Divergent, Allegiant, and Insurgent, I think. This is a 3 thing. So, but it's the Divergent series. And so they're promoting right now, like this is the newest movie coming out for it. It's a book series too, but same idea. It's a series. So something that you might want to think of if you're going to do it as a collection of different books is coming up with a name for the collection. Like, is it going to be the Adfectus series of books? And you can still absolutely have the first one called Adfectus and then name other ones, but that would all be part of the same thing, you know, which would make sense because you just made that the Facebook page.
Yep.
So, but while you're brand new and while this hasn't come out, now is the time to solidify that with something that you can live with. So, you know, the Reliquarium Project, there's 9 books. Each of the 9 books will have their own title, but I have the Reliquarium reserved as the website and the main thing. So that's the series, like Lord of the Rings, you know, and Harry Potter is the name of the series, but it's, you know, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. So I would look at what you want the whole series to be as a whole.
Okay. I'm going to look at more Latin names as well.
And that might be something neat to do too, is like look up words like collection and books, or maybe library or art gallery or something, like what the Latin names are for that can come in so that it can be the collected whole. But I'm also totally fine with it being Infectus, and then having like Infectus being the first one, and then following that with like Infectus Imagination, Infectus Wisdom and Knowledge. You know, like you could have multiple series from that. But I am in agreement that having one page that people can continue to go to and building your following in a solid cluster rather than across multiple pages is good. This is definitely a case of do as your master says, not as she does. It took me a while to learn that when I had like way too many pages for different things at one time. I still do. But that would definitely be, that would be my suggestion, is to have a full one. So if you decide that you want to name the collection something else and Infectus is just the first book in the series, then I would have a name for the whole, and that would be the Facebook page. But then it would be on your title page, then it would be whatever the collection name is, and then Infectus, you know, so it would be collection Infectus, collection creativity, collection wisdom, you know, so forth and so on.
I have to think about that.
Yeah. So good food for thought. I would not be in a hurry to get it in print and start selling, because I think knowing what I know now, the marketing is more important than the product. So you have the product done, we can continue tweaking and moving with it. But I would definitely figure out what you want the collection to be. I would definitely set up all your social media, and then I would set up a campaign for it so that people start hearing about it before it's available, but not too far before it's available. Sure. So what is the company that you're working with for the book right now that you designed it in?
That's Bob Books.
Okay.
But that won't be the company I'd end up publishing with, if that makes sense, because it's self-publishing and it's too expensive. It is coming out quite a lot. I have been looking at other publishers as well, but I always thought, and I'm still kind of saying, I always thought that the end of this sphere too, I would have a printed book that was a test book for me. It wouldn't be a book that would then be shown, because it's not the final, it's not how I would want it, cloth bound or anything like that, but it's like a stepping stone book. It may be a book to take to publishers and say, look, these are the images, this is the text, this is not the final thing, but just something, you know, to see if they'd be interested, rather than a PDF, unless they only accept PDFs. It's just, I almost feel that, you know, Sphere 2 was about getting the idea and building on it. I kind of think, and you did right at the beginning say when we had our chat, you know, you could do a Sphere 2 and Sphere 3 out of everything that we were talking about. And I almost feel that Sphere 3 would be the way that would then get it to print at the end, if that makes sense.
Honestly, looking at it now, with the intention of doing it right, and as long as you have patience, which I never have, but I would say that the next sphere, the next 10 levels would actually be tweaking and finishing the book so that it is in pristine visual condition, exactly how you want it, which is minimal. And this is stuff that you can stay in and keep doing here, and I can work with you on it. It's not a bad idea to create a little team with any friends of yours that are writers, and making friends with a book designer, just to help lay it out. I think that you're providing all the meat and the bones, but it's like having all the ingredients. You know, I can grab all the same ingredients, but I cannot make a meal like a 5-star chef can, even if I'm following the same recipe. Like some of it is just different things. Now, I am a big believer that you can teach yourself what those are. And honestly, I could sit and maybe one of our critiques, because I think we're moving away from that in higher spheres now that I've done them. I don't think they're critiques as much as sitting and going, okay, this is where we are, where do we have to go next, rather than this is your image and this is what I think of it, because it's a project. So I would like to see the book have a little bit more work done to be a little bit more visually striking. I still think this is the first draft. And one of my writing mentors says all the time, the first draft is just you telling the story to yourself, which I think you've done now. So now we can really start dressing it up and getting the presentation together. I think your whole next sphere would be basically a marketing campaign for the book with social media, but also looking into what kind of products this opens the potential to be with some of the things that we were talking about, what you want to offer, what the prices are going to be in overhead for you, how you're going to price them competitively, and looking at potential avenues for where you can then put those products out. Which stores are we going to? How are we getting it in bookstores? Looking at the ISBN numbers and stuff like that, because I would like to see this. Like, I want to be able to go into Barnes and Noble here and pick up your book.
Wow.
That's what I want. That's my goal. Now, on the upside, having done that, I know how to do that. And, you know, it really is like the reason most people don't do that is because they don't know how to do that. But there are, you know, now that I've done it both ways and I've done traditional publishing and self-publishing, if that is the route that you want to go, we can do that. That's
right. Yeah, no, absolutely. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. So, but I think that you also have the option for a lot of individual smaller, I don't like the term novelty gifts, but that's essentially the category that they would be filed under with them. So things like the greeting cards, the smaller prints, you know, there's a lot of potentials out there. And then that opens up to a lot of different stores that you can put your work in. Now we're talking about things like, you know, the sort of home goods stores and stationery stores and gift stores and things around you and things around the places where those images were created. You know, there's a lot of potential for marketing. You could very easily do another 10 levels off of that, because, you know, the Arcanum is interesting in the way that it breaks things down into levels or challenges, but really all the challenges are in Sphere 2 for you, or is basically just going, you're here, you want to get here, what are the actual steps you have to do? Because basically everyone will tell you, oh, great, you have a book. Now you just got to go get it published. And that's like, oh, yeah, we'll just go do that. But when you go, okay, you had to contact this person and you have to go get your ISBN numbers from here. And this is the overhead cost. So we need to raise this kind of collateral. And, you know, then they're actionable steps that you can work at. So I remember you kind of like when we sat down at your like initial consultation, I was like, this is what I want you to do. You're like, okay.
I'm totally freaked out. Yeah, no.
Yeah, you know, because it's overwhelming. I ask a lot of all of you, you know, we just saw that with Isabel. She's like, can I quit before I start? Because it's daunting. But when you break it down into little steps, it becomes a little less hard to climb it. So I think you could do pretty much an entire marketing and product campaign for your next sphere.
Perfect.
Or your next 10 challenges. And then I think the final sphere, honestly, I'd say commit to staying and doing 20 levels.
I'm up for it, definitely.
Yeah, I'd say stay. And I don't even know that you need to, I think Sphere 3, because I think what the Arcanum's trying to do now, and I don't know when it's going to be offered, but the Arcanum wants to offer like repeat a sphere. So you could do Sphere 2 again. I would say stay and do Sphere 2 like we just did. And then Sphere 3 would probably be the actual publishing and printing of the book. And then with Sphere 3, I could spend some more time, really sit down and work with you one-on-one on just the layouts and the designs and the specs, designing it in the right program. Because right now you're chain bound to the company you designed it with because you use their software. You know, so every different printer uses different bleed margins and things like that, and you have to get them from the different companies. I can talk to the person that did my books and put you in touch with them, and they publish internationally. And we can look at the different options as far as printing and the possibilities. Most people nowadays, artists and authors, choose to do print on demand because you only pay for the book when it sells. So the upside is you create the book and you put it in whoever's bookstore, Blurb or Bob's Books or whatever. And, you know, when a copy actually sells and somebody buys it, then they print it and they take their cut and you price it above that for whatever you want it to be. But you're looking at, what did they quote you for the book? Do you remember offhand?
Yes, I do. I mean, the small size, like 21 by 15, which is teeny tiny, I think, is £42.99. So what's that, about $65?
Yeah.
The next size up, which I think is A4, was $62.99.
So this one is 11 by 13. It's a big book.
Yeah, that's big.
Because we did self-publishing on a small print run, when I priced this out the same way, it was looking like, I think it was $124.
Okay.
And that was with the bulk pricing because I knew I was getting a bunch of copies done. Because I went with small press run, that cost me $13 a copy. So I made all my money back way faster, but I had to put the money up at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's the trade-off. And a lot of people, when they, so I was like, oh, it's only $13 a book. And you're like, well, why am I paying $65? Well, I also put 20 grand up at the beginning to send it to the printers. So if you don't have that in your bank account, then you're going, oh God. And there's still quite a few of these in my garage that make my husband grumble every time he walks by. But at this point, I only had to sell, I got 1,000 of them done, and I only had to sell 150 of them before I had broke even. And everything after that was profit. So it's a long-term investment game. You don't have any upfront costs, but you're definitely not making as much money. If you price these books at $75 and they're costing you $65, you're making $10 a book, as opposed to if we get them done small press run and they're costing you $10 to $15 a book, and you're making $50 profit off of every book.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. What's a small press run? What's the minimum roughly on a small press run?
Usually it's no smaller than 250 copies, no smaller. But when we were looking at them, like it was at 250 copies, because I got priced out for 250, 500, 750, and 1,000. And then I think 1,500. So at like 250 copies, I'm going to ballpark it because I don't remember because it was years ago, but at like 250, it was almost comparable. It was like $40, $50 each. But then at 500, it went down to 20. So it was half the cost.
Okay.
And then at 750, it went down to like 17. And at 1,000, it went down to like 12. Okay. So the more it ran, and like if I had run, say 5,000, they would have came out to like $8 a copy.
Sure.
But if I had gotten 5,000 books and my husband came home from Afghanistan and saw 5,000 books crated up in front of his garage, he would have divorced me immediately. He wouldn't have come home. And I knew I didn't want that many copies. So it's the same thing. The other thing that you can look at is you can run like a first edition print run of say 250 to 1,000 copies, and then you can do another print run. However, like this one has a certificate of authenticity because there's only 1,000 copies. I will never get more of them made. So if you do this as a limited edition thing, you immediately can double the price because it becomes a fine art item and a luxury item and something that not everyone can have. So when they're numbered, that's how you offset the cost again. So if this was available forever and anybody could order a copy now or in the future, and I did several runs and there were tens of thousands of copies, I would only be able to sell them at say probably like 25 to 50 bucks is like the normal like coffee table book kind of thing. Because they're limited edition and these are the only ones that will ever exist, they sell for 125 a piece. Even when they're on sale and I offer them at like my workshops and different retreats and things that I'm doing, or I do something, they're on sale for like $75. So that's the trade-off of it. So those are all things to consider with what you want to do. Because the bottom line is we can look at, and part of your sphere can be raising the money. We'll get some quotes on what the prices are going to be and the sizes and see, and you can sell them. But you could always look at doing, it's the same kind of thing. Like if they have all the info inputs, so if you design it as a square book, then it's a square book and they can just put it in. So as long as it's high res, they can print it as a 10 by 10, but they could also do it as a 5 by 5. So maybe we do a big one that's like 10 by 10 that's costing you 10 to 20, but we only do 500 of them. But then we also do 500 in like a 5 by 5 that's like a smaller little kitschy kind of book. That way it saves you money off of the size. You have multiple items and then you're offering a limited edition, but you're still on the same print run, so it costs less money. This is like, there's a ton of information. We could spend an hour just talking about just book printing.
Okay, lots to think about.
So, but for right now, what is your level 26? What do you have left to do yet?
Level 26 was to write an online photo course, because I was thinking, you know, I've given up my job. I'm thinking of trying to ways to try and make money, and I was going to write like a creative one, not a technical one, because I'm not technical. But I've really ummed and ahed about it, and I don't know whether that's the way forward. I don't know. For some reason, I haven't started it. So, and, you know, a couple of people have said to me, oh, you know, I'd love to go out with you for the day in London, and, you know, can you teach me photography? That's where the idea came from. And so I was thinking, well, do I instead just do PDFs, you know, that are like $5 or $10 or something? Or do I do like a stepped program where they can choose like 5 modules, they can mix and match the ones that they want to do, or at the end it could be like a day out, you know, it was like a stepped program, so stepped pricing. So like, you know, maybe there's 10 modules, but you only have to pick 5. You can pick the 5 that you want. Maybe it's on minimalism, or maybe it's on color, or something like that. I don't know. They were the kind of ideas that were coming up in my mind.
So there's 2 thoughts that immediately come to mind. One, if you do them as PDFs or online videos, readings, whatever it is, again, you're doing residual income. So once the course is built, that's it. It makes you money, and you don't have to put any more time. People just buy it and download it. That's always good from a financial standpoint. However, you like to travel, you want to shoot, and you want to create additional books for this. So I would absolutely also consider doing maybe an Adfectus workshop thing, where different places that you want to go. Now I would be looking like, oh, I really want to go shoot in the US, so I can go hang out with Jess for a week. I'm going to plan a retreat out there. And the idea is that the people that are coming to the retreat, they would cover all of your travel costs, wherever you're staying, all of those expenses. So you would essentially be able to travel for free, which is exactly what I do with all of my workshops. So like my workshop that I'm working out in Brazil later this year, all of my expenses are covered, and I'll still put probably $1,500 in my pocket after I stay. You know, Las Vegas too. We're doing like the retreat in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks. Like we rented a beautiful mansion. Even on short notice with what I'm making while I'm out there, the mansion's covered, my flight, my husband's flight, my makeup artist, and my model, all of their stuff is covered. And we're out there a couple of days longer than people are there with us for the retreat. So you can definitely look at stuff like that, even if you're doing just like a one-day class. Because the bottom line is that when people look at your work and they're moved by you from an artistic standpoint as fellow artists, they just want to understand how you do what you do. And I am such a big believer that that is the fastest way to learn. Like spending 3 days with you in person, I can teach you more about how to shoot portraiture than you being in the Arcanum for a year, which don't tell anybody in the Arcanum has said that. But I'm a big believer in that, because that's how I learn. Like I've learned more 2 days working one-on-one, hands-on, and having somebody immediately correct me than I have taking definitely any courses. I like the Arcanum because there's still this kind of interaction where it's a conversation. And this has always been more beneficial to me as a teacher and as a student than creating books or videos or something where people can watch and they can retain, but you know, they can't sit and ask questions, you know. But if I wanted to create a collection of images and I wanted to travel the world, then I would definitely be looking at offering like a 1 or 2 day workshop, where people can come, they can come with you somewhere that you want to go shoot and see what you're shooting. And I would just pick 2 locations, like pick one that's for you in your workshop, and then pick one that's for you for the next piece that you're doing to build your library, you know, and have the expenses go. Because if you find out it's going to be $5,000 for you to travel where you want to travel locally, you know, like on the other side of your country or something like that, and that's what you work the price out to be. If you have 5 people at $1,000 for the day, you've now covered those expenses. If you have 10 people at $500, you've covered those expenses. If you have 20 people at $250, you've covered those expenses. So then you can just decide, like, how many people do I want? Because the trade-off is, if I have a workshop with 20 to 30 people, I can't sit and do this with every single one of them in a single day. So if they want my undivided attention, like the one in Vegas, I'm only having 10 people come because I do not want more than that, because I don't feel like I can give them the kind of time and energy. but they'll pay, you know, $1,200 to $1,500 to come stay for 3 days to have that kind of one-on-one time so that we can do what you and I are doing. Which is funny when you think about it. I thought about that. My husband said that. He's like, you know, you're charging them more for 72 hours than your Arcanum people pay for an entire year with you. But same thing, like we do this every couple of levels, but you know, it's different to spend all that one-on-one time. For some people, just going with you and watching you shoot will be enough, and it's added income. So, I totally think that's fine, but I also totally think it's okay if you're like, this is my book and this is my baby and where I want to focus right now, to set aside that level and we'll just scrap it for right now and keep moving forward with the book, because you can always build that later.
Yeah, I think I'm more into, like, even now what you're, you know, now I think I can spend ages re-editing the book, re-looking at things, checking the fonts, doing all that. There seems to be quite a lot still to do on this. I think I'd rather concentrate on that and then write a course or write a stepped course or write a workshop or whatever, because I think that's going to distract me slightly. And also the other thing is I'm not known. So, you know, and one thing that I struggle really with is marketing anything, like my work or anything. So I could write that course, but then it will just sit on my computer.
Well, I don't necessarily think that's true, but I do think that it's both. And I'm all about you being single-mindedly focused on this. Like, it's like we equate it to like spinning plates. If you've ever seen like the plate spinning artists where they can like spin them and get them started, they get one going really good and then they step away and move to the next one. And the problem comes in when you're trying to tend too many things at once. Story of my life this month. So being single-mindedly focused, working on this book, making this a pristine, exquisite example of what photographic artistry should look like in a coffee table book, and then marketing that single focused will in turn offer you the options of more people contacting you and going, hey, I'd really love to study. Do you do workshops? But, you know, really when I've found that when people say, are you going to do a workshop? Could you teach me or mentor me one-on-one? Really what they want is just your time.
Yeah.
You know, and the ability to ask you questions and do exactly what we're doing right now. So it may be that instead of building a course per se, that you offer personal mentoring or a day out, where they can hire you for a day rate. Say, I wouldn't do it for less than $500 for the day at minimum, but go somewhere that you'd love to shoot, get some images for yourself while you're out there, and just spend a day one-on-one. To honestly, what you're doing is you're holding onto the bike while they're taking the training wheels off.
Yeah.
You know,
but more me, I think. Like this, you know, I don't want to do like 20, 30 people in a group. That's not me anyway. I'd much rather just do like a one-on-one.
Yeah, and then you don't have to worry about designing, you know, a whole course and maintaining people and the kinds of insurance you need for seminars and stuff and travel and all that nonsense. I would just say, absolutely. I do a single day. It's, you know, X amount of hours, you know, it's 8 hours. We get up before sunrise. I meet you here. We'll go, we'll shoot. We'll come back and we'll look at the images. I'll give you some thoughts, you know, and it's this price. And then just think about what you want to get paid an hour. I wouldn't do it for any less than, I would say for an 8-hour day, $800 is a fair price. You know, it's $100 an hour. Mm-hmm. What they'll get by spending an entire day with you, learning how to shoot and how you edit, will be invaluable. It'll be more than they'll get an entire year at university. So
cool. Well, that's what I should look more into. But for my level 26, I think I'd rather just get all the book, you know, ready to its test print stage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would definitely, my recommendation for you is to actually look into InDesign with Adobe.
Okay.
That will serve you very well for this and all future book projects. And you can just get the bleed sizes and the page sizes for any company that you might want to work with now or in the future, and it's translatable. Mm-hmm. That's what I use to design all of my books, all of my brochures. Like I love that program to the nth degree. And I think it comes out to like $20 a month for additional programs off of Adobe, or you can, if you already have the full art thing, it's like $50 a month.
Okay, I'll have a look at that. I mean, I'm on Creative Cloud, but let me have a check to see what I've got. I think I just had them. Okay, cool. I can add that on.
You could also do it just in Photoshop. Like you can set up the size and the page bleeds and just put your margins and set it up and do it in Photoshop. It'll just save it as individual pages, and then you can save it as a PDF when you're all done. Whatever works for you. If you don't want to invest the additional money, there's tons of ways. But when it comes to designing a book, like I'll go to InDesign every time. It's totally worth the money for me. And because you're already familiar with Photoshop and Adobe, it's kind of the same interface. So it's a shorter learning curve.
Yeah. And if I'm going to do more than one book, then it makes more sense to start out in the right way, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I would say, honestly, I would say just scrap 26. I think you're at the right point. Like if you want to keep it and have a level, but you accomplished everything that we were out. So if we're not teaching and that's not where we're at right now, then I would say just let it go. If you want to give the book a little more TLC, I think that's fine. But honestly, I think it's 2 or 3 good levels. I would graduate and do a new map. Because I think we're onto that stage. Like if you want to stay and tweak and give some TLC until you're happy with it, that's fine. But I think we're at the point now that you and I could sit down and go, these are the steps, and build you a new map so that you keep having that checklist, because you work really well like that. Like you went through it like that.
And would that be in, I mean, I don't care whether that's resitting Sphere 2 or doing Sphere 3. That doesn't make any difference to me whatsoever. So yeah. It's kind of like, if there isn't a Sphere 3 ready for you at the moment, you know, if I'm allowed to resit it again without annoying people in a waiting list, then that, you know, that works for me. I'm really easy, whatever works.
You're already grandfathered in. They can sit and wait. I'll kick out someone else I don't like John Kaminsky.
Who?
John Kaminsky. Yeah. See, he never comes by. That's why. Because he's teaching too. I told him when he started, he's so ambitious, but I was like, dude, once you start mastering, you won't have the time to sit in, because there's a ton of masters I would love to sit in as an apprentice right now. I have like a list. No, I would say this kind of format for what Sphere 2 is, that you could probably go through another Sphere at Sphere 2. I'll have to check in and message and see what the ETA is on repeat Sphere. And I'll get back to you offline for that. But I would say you could do another Sphere exactly like this. Yeah. With measurable steps and just checking in every couple of levels. And then I would say when we actually get to the point that we want to print, publish, and promote, that would be a Sphere 3, because that way I can work with you one-on-one and we could do this really tight for a couple of weeks. It'll probably be a shorter Sphere in Sphere 3, but it'll be a lot more intensive in one-on-one time.
Yeah, cool. I'm easy with them. That sounds fab. Amazing.
Okay. I have Marcello and Alan to do their Sphere 2 maps. So I think in the meantime, keep working on it, get some more feedback, see what people think. Maybe put up do like a Word doc with a bunch of different fonts with Infectus and get some feedback and see what people like. Play with the layout a little more. And then we'll touch base, say, next week, and maybe do another hangout and start working on actionable steps. Although I think I could probably write your next Sphere without actually hanging out again, because I think we covered almost all of it here.
Okay, well, I'm off to Berlin next Saturday and I'm away for 10 days. So that gives some breathing space for you. Cool. Okay, but I'll start looking at fonts and the, you know, the different layouts and stuff. Brilliant.
I would absolutely, while you're on your way to Berlin, something else I would be doing is I would be thinking, what does the next piece in this series look like, the next book?
Yeah.
And keeping that in mind, because it'll change the way you shoot while you're over there and what you're looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's your level 26. Your level 26 is to come up with a concept for the second book in the series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Second book concept. I'll be busy because I'm going to continue the Hidden Beauty series. That's my other book that I'm thinking of doing. So
I love that. That might be the second book in the Infectus series.
Yeah, could be.
So
maybe.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, thanks so much. That was wicked.
Okay, awesome. I will talk to you soon then. Bye, Sandra.
Right, lovely. Thanks, Jessica.
Bye.